Tonight, all eyes on New Hampshire. After just 8 votes in Iowa separated him
On to New Hampshire. Let's get that job done.
from him,
Game on. We will win this election.
the game has changed.
I have decided to stand aside.
And now, everything is different.
What do we need to do as a country to get back on the right track?
Can anyone overtake Mitt Romney as he tries to close in and seal the nomination? Can Rick Santorum build on his stunning Iowa success? Is time running out for these candidates to catch the frontrunner, save their campaigns?
We've got some tough decisions to make.
We are going to take America back.
Believe me, this momentum is going to continue.
The voting has begun. The stakes couldn't be any higher. And tonight, we put them all to the test. So what's next? In this campaign season filled with so many dramatic surprises. Live from Manchester, New Hampshire and St. Anselm College in partnership with Yahoo News and WMUR-TV. This is the ABC News Republican Presidential Debate. Your voice, your vote. Now reporting, Diane Sawyer, George Stephanopoulos, and joining us tonight from New Hampshire's own WMUR, Political Director Josh McKelvin.
And good evening to all of you. Welcome to St. Anselm College and the first debate of the year 2012. The voting is underway, and George, those 8 votes in Iowa reminded us on Tuesday every vote counts.
No question about it. We are off and running. Great to be here with you, Josh. And now let's introduce the candidates. Former Governor John Huntsman, Texas Congressman Ron Paul, former Governor of Massachusetts Mitt Romney, former Senator from Pennsylvania Rick Santorum, the former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, and Texas Governor Rick Perry.
And it is time to remind everyone again of the rules, which are pretty straightforward, and we remind you again, they were negotiated and agreed to by the candidates themselves. So let's take you through them. 1-minute responses to the question with 30 seconds for rebuttal, and we're showing everybody at home that the candidates will see green, and then when there's 15 seconds left, it will turn yellow and red when the time is up.
Our audience was chosen by St. Anselm College and WMUR, and all of you at home can watch on abcnews.com and yahoo.com. You can even join the discussion by downloading Yahoo's Into Now app on your iPhone. You can pitch in your opinions during the debate.
So let the debate begin, and Governor Romney, will begin with you. We just saw 200,000 new jobs created last month, and there are optimists who say this is the signal that this economy is finally turning around. Are you with those optimists?
I'm an optimist, and I certainly hope it turns around. We have millions of people who've been suffering too long. 25 million people that are out of work or have stopped looking for work, and also a lot of people who've got part-time jobs and need full-time employment. So it's very good news, and I hope we continue to see good news. But it's not thanks to President Obama. His policies have made the recession deeper, and his policies have made the recovery more tepid. As a result of everything from Obamacare to Dodd-Frank to a stimulus plan that was not as well directed as it should have been, to a whole host of new regulations that have been put on American businesses, he's made it harder for small entrepreneurs and big businesses to decide to invest in America and to grow jobs here. And so the president is going to try and take responsibility for things getting better. You know, it's like the rooster taking responsibility for the sunrise. He didn't do it. In fact, what he did was make things harder for America to get going again.
I want to turn now to Senator Santorum. Senator Santorum, you have said we don't need a CEO, we don't need a manager as president. What did you mean by that?
Well, we need a leader, someone who can paint a positive vision for this country, someone who, you know, has the experience to go out and be the commander-in-chief. I've experience in 8 years on the Armed Services Committee. I managed major pieces of legislation through the House and through the Senate on national security issues like Iran, which is the most, you want to talk about the most pressing issue that we're dealing with today? It's Iran. And as Newt's talked about many times, there's no one that has more experience in dealing with that country than I do. And that means that we need someone who can go out and paint a vision of what America's strength is about, let our allies know that they can trust us, let our enemies know that they have to respect us, and if they cross us, they should fear us.
It has been written you were talking about Governor Romney, were you?
Well, I'm talking about, in the case of, we need a manager, as you're talking about, as far as the commander-in-chief or the manager part?
The manager.
The manager part. Yeah, well, of course I was talking about Governor Romney. I was talking about someone who was bringing to the table he says, I'm going to be, I've got business experience. Well, business experience doesn't necessarily match up with being the commander-in-chief of this country. The commander-in-chief of this country isn't a CEO. It's someone who has to lead, and it's also being the president is not a CEO. You can't direct, members of Congress and members of the Senate as to how you do things. You've got to lead and inspire. And that's what I think the people here in Iowa and in New Hampshire were looking for, someone who can inspire and paint a positive vision for this country. And I've been the one that's been able to do that, and that's the reason I think we're doing well in the polls.
Governor Romney, your response?
I think people who spend their life in Washington don't understand what happens out in the real economy. They think that people who start businesses are just managers. People who start as entrepreneurs to start a business from the ground up and get customers and get investors and hire people to join them, those people are leaders. And the chance to lead in free enterprise is extraordinarily critical to also being able to lead a state like I led in Massachusetts. And, by the way, lead the Olympics. My experience is in leadership. The people in the private sector who are every day making this country a stronger nation and hiring people, they're not successful because they're managers. They're successful primarily because they are leaders. I wish people in Washington had the experience of going out and working in the real economy first before they went there, and they'd understand some of the real lessons of leadership.
Let me bring Speaker Gingrich in on this discussion because, Mr. Speaker, a group supporting you, run by one of your closest longtime advisors, has put out a very scathing attack just today on Governor Romney, on his tenure as the CEO of that investment firm, Bain Capital. It calls that tenure a story of greed. That's a quote, saying that Bain made spectacular profits by, again, quote, stripping American businesses of assets, selling everything to the highest bidder, and often killing jobs for big financial rewards. Do you agree with that characterization?
Well, I haven't seen the film, but it does reflect the New York Times story 2 days ago about one particular company. And I think people should look at the film and decide if it's factually accurate. It raises questions. I'm very much for free enterprise. I'm very much for exactly what the governor just described. Create a business, grow jobs, provide leadership. I'm not nearly as enamored of a Wall Street model where you can flip companies, you can go in and have leverage buyouts, you can basically take out all the money, leaving behind the workers.
Is that the Bain model?
Well, I think you have to look at the film, and you have to look at the New York Times coverage of one particular company, and you have to ask yourself some questions. The governor has every right to defend that, but I think it's a legitimate part of the debate to say, okay, on balance, were people better off or were people worse off for this particular style of investment?
Back in December, you said that Governor Romney made money at Bain by, quote, bankrupting companies and laying off employees.
That was, I think, the New York Times story 2 days ago. They took one specific company, they walked through in detail, they showed what they bought it for, how much they took out of it, and the 1,700 people they left unemployed. Now, check the New York Times story, but that's their story.
Governor Romney, your response.
Well, I'm not surprised to have the New York Times try and put free enterprise on trial. I'm not surprised to have the Obama administration do that either. It's a little surprising from my colleagues on this stage. We understand that in the free economy, in the private sector, that sometimes investments don't work and you're not successful. It always pains you if you have to be in a situation of downsizing a business in order to try and make it more successful, turn it around, and try and grow it again. And I'm very proud of the fact that the two enterprises I led were quite successful, and the Olympics was successful, and my state was successful, the state of Massachusetts. But in the business I had, we invested in over 100 different businesses, and net, taking out the ones where we lost jobs and those that we added, those businesses have now added over 100,000 jobs. I have a record of learning how to create jobs.
There have been questions about that calculation of the 100,000 jobs. So if you could explain a little more. I've read some analysts who look at it and say that you're counting the jobs that were created but not counting the jobs that were taken away. Is that accurate?
No, it's not accurate. It includes the net of both. I'm a good enough numbers guy to make sure I got both sides of that. But the simple ones, some of the biggest, for instance, there's a steel company called Steel Dynamics in Indiana, thousands of jobs there. Bright Horizons Children's Centers, about 15,000 jobs there. Sports Authority, about 15,000 jobs there. Staples alone, 90,000 employed. That's a business that we helped start from the ground up. But there
that includes jobs that were created even after you left, correct?
Oh, yes. Those are businesses we started that continue to grow. And we're only a small part of that, by the way. We were investors to help get them going. But in some cases, businesses shrunk. We tried to help turn them around, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. But let's not forget, this is a free enterprise system. We don't need government to come in and tell us how to make businesses work. We need people with passion, willing to take risk and help turn things around. And where that works, you create jobs.
Let me bring Governor Huntsman in on this, because supporters of yours have also taken aim at this tenure, at Governor Romney's tenure at Bain Capital. And you know the Democrats are preparing to do it as well. So on balance, should Republicans worry about this attack? Is Governor Romney's record at Bain a weakness or a strength?
Well, it's a part of his record, and therefore it's going to be talked about. And I think it's fair for the people of this nation to have a conversation about one's record. And Governor Romney can say whatever he wishes to say about it. I also have private sector experience. I combine a little bit of what Rick Santorum talked about and what Governor Romney has. I think it's a good balance. I come from manufacturing. People will find something in my record. But you know what? It's important for the people to look at our records, because everybody up here has a record that ought to be scrutinized. But it goes beyond the private sector. You know, I served as a governor. Mitt served as a governor. Others up here have had positions of responsibility. Take a look at what we did as governor. I think that is probably more telling in terms of what I would do or what Mitt would do as President of the United States. I put bold proposals forward. I delivered a flat tax for my state. I took my state to #1 in job creation. With all due respect to what Rick Perry has said about Texas, we did a little bit better. We reformed health care without a mandate. We took our state to #1 as the most business-friendly state in America. Now, in a time in our nation's history when we so desperately need jobs, I think that's going to be a very material part of the discussion.
Governor Romney, 30 seconds.
I congratulate Governor Huntsman on the success in his governorship to make the state more attractive for business. That's got to happen. I actually think it's helpful to have people who've had a job in the private sector if you want to create jobs in the private sector. We've had a lot of presidents over the years who have wonderful experience, and right now we have people whose backgrounds are in the governmental sector as well as the private sector. I think now, given what America is facing globally, given an economy that's changed its dynamics dramatically over the last 10 years, you need to have someone who understands how that economy works at a very close level if we're going to be able to post up against President Obama and establish a record that says this is different than a president who does not understand job creation.
Congressman Paul, let's stay on the issue of records. You've got a new ad up in South Carolina taking direct aim at Senator Santorum. You call him a corporate lobbyist, a Washington insider with a record of betrayal. You also call him corrupt in that ad. Senator Santorum is standing right here. Are you willing to stand by those charges and explain them?
Well, it was a quote. Somebody did make a survey, and I think he came out as one of the top corrupt individuals because he took so much money from the lobbyists. But really what the whole... There it goes again.
They caught you not telling the truth, Ron.
But what really counts is his record. I mean, he's a big government, big spending individual because, he preached the fact that he wanted a balanced budget amendment but voted to raise the debt to 5 times. So he is a big government person. And we as Republicans know something about right to work. He voted against right to work. He voted along with No Child Left Behind to double, the size of the Department of Education. And he also voted for a prescription drug program. So he's a big government person, along with him being very associated with the lobbyists and taking a lot of funds. And also, where did he make his living afterwards? I mean, he became a high-powered lobbyist in Washington, D.C., and he's done quite well. We checked out Newt on his income. I think we ought to find out how much money he's made from the lobbyists as well.
A lot of charges there, Senator.
Yeah, I was going to say, do I have 20 minutes to answer these? Let's talk about the corruption issue. The group that called me corrupt was a group called Crew. If you haven't been sued by Crew, you're not a conservative. Crew is this left-wing organization that puts out a list every election of the top Republicans who have tough races and calls them all corrupt because they take contributions from PACs. It's a ridiculous charge, and you should know better than to cite George Soros-like organizations to say that they're corrupt. So that's number one. Ron, I'm a conservative. I'm not a libertarian. I believe in some government. I do believe that government has, that as a senator from Pennsylvania, that I had a responsibility to go out there and represent the interests of my state. And that's what I did, to make sure that Pennsylvania was able, in formulas and other things, to get its fair share of money back. I don't apologize for that any more than you did when you earmarked things and did things when you were a congressman in Texas. As far as the money that I received, you know, I think I'm known in